The screensaver on my phone was still the same, Vanessa and I at Lake Michigan last summer, her blonde hair whipping across her laughing face as I kissed her cheek. I stared at it while Mark's voice continued through the speaker, each word systematically dismantling the relationship I thought I had. Dude, I didn't know how to tell you this, but Aiden saw her at Meridian last night with some guy. They were all over each other. I felt strangely calm as pieces clicked into place, the late work meetings, the sudden password changes on her phone, her accusations that my questions were controlling and paranoid. For weeks, I'd suspected something was wrong, only to be told repeatedly that the problem was me and my trust issues. Now, as Mark awkwardly waited for my reaction, I made a decision that would change everything. I would stop fighting Vanessa's lies and simply step back. Thanks for telling me, I said quietly. But I'm done confronting her. I'm just going to watch what happens. I couldn't have known then how completely her carefully constructed deception would unravel once I stopped holding it together with my questions, or how public the implosion would ultimately be. Are you sure you're okay, man? Mark asked, clearly concerned by my measured response. In our 10 years of friendship, he'd seen me angry, heartbroken, elated, but never this calm in the face of betrayal. I'm not okay, I admitted. But I'm done being gaslit. Every time I've questioned anything these past few months, she's made me feel crazy for even asking, so I'm not asking anymore. What exactly are you planning to do? I considered this as I stared out my apartment window at the Chicago skyline. Vanessa and I had been together for 2 years, and I'd been saving for a ring. Now those plans seemed like a cruel joke. Nothing, I finally answered. Absolutely nothing. I'm going to act exactly the same. No confrontations, no accusations. I'll just watch as it all falls apart on its own. Mark was silent for a moment. That's either really mature or slightly terrifying. I can't decide which. Maybe it was both. But after months of having my perceptions questioned, of being told that my legitimate concerns were manifestations of insecurity, the clarity was almost intoxicating. I didn't need to prove I was right anymore. I just needed to step back and let the truth reveal itself. Who was the guy? I asked, more out of curiosity than pain at this point. Aiden didn't recognize him. Tall, dark hair, expensive watch. They were at the VIP section. The VIP section. On a Thursday night when Vanessa had texted she was working late on the Henderson account, the pieces continued to align with disturbing precision. After ending the call with Mark, I checked my messages. Vanessa had texted an hour ago. Still at the office. Don't wait up. Love you. I stared at the heart emoji, wondering how someone could type that while living such a profound lie. For a brief moment, I considered confronting her immediately, demanding explanations, showing up at her supposed location. But what would that accomplish except another round of denials and accusations that I was being paranoid? No, it was time for a different approach. No problem. Get some rest when you're done. Love you too. Simple. Believable. And entirely strategic. When Vanessa came home just after midnight, I pretended to be asleep. She moved quietly through our bedroom, the scent of unfamiliar cologne mingling with her perfume as she slipped into the bathroom. I listened to the shower running and wondered how many times this exact scenario had played out while I slept genuinely, unsuspectingly. In the morning, I maintained the performance, kissing her goodbye as she left for work in her marketing firm's downtown office. If she noticed anything different in my demeanor, she didn't show it. Perhaps she was too wrapped up in her own deception to recognize mine. That weekend unfolded with excruciating normalcy. We had dinner with friends on Friday, spent Saturday morning at the farmer's market, watched movies on the couch. All while I silently catalogued the moments she checked her phone and stepped out for work calls that left her cheeks flushed and her eyes avoiding mine when she returned. By Sunday night, the weight of awareness was becoming difficult to bear. I found myself in the kitchen, gripping the counter as waves of anger and hurt washed over me. You okay? Vanessa asked, appearing in the doorway. You've been quiet today. I turned, summoning the performance once more. Just tired. Thinking about work tomorrow. She studied me for a moment, and I wondered if my facade was slipping. Then she smiled, that radiant smile I'd fallen in love with, and crossed the room to wrap her arms around me. Poor baby. Let me run you a bath. As I sat in the hot water later, I marveled at the paradox of intimacy and deception coexisting so seamlessly. The woman who knew exactly how hot I liked my bath was living a double life that excluded me entirely. The next week passed in this surreal state of knowing and pretending not to know. I went to my job as a software engineer, attended meetings, fixed bugs, laughed at colleagues' jokes, all while feeling fundamentally disconnected from my own life. Meanwhile, I became a passive observer to Vanessa's careful choreography. The networking events that required her to dress more provocatively than any professional function would warrant. The girls' nights that somehow never included photos on social media. The dead phone battery explanations for hours of unreachability. I didn't question any of it. I didn't check her location or ask for details or wait up. I simply watched as the woman I loved performed an elaborate dance around the truth. On Thursday evening, exactly 1 week after Mark's call, Vanessa mentioned another late work meeting. I nodded, kissed her goodbye, and settled in for an evening alone. But instead of staying home, I texted Jason, a friend from my gym, and met him for drinks at a brewery across town. It felt good to be out, to remember I existed outside the suffocating bubble of deception that had become my relationship. Jason knew nothing about my situation with Vanessa, so our conversation stayed blessedly free of the topic. Until his girlfriend Mia arrived with her friend Kelsey, who apparently worked at Axis Marketing, the same firm as Vanessa. "Oh, you're Vanessa Bennett's boyfriend," Kelsey exclaimed when Jason introduced us. "I see her around the office all the time." I smiled even as I felt my heart rate increase. "That's me. She mentioned she's working late tonight. Big project?" Kelsey looked confused. "Really? The Henderson account closed last week. I don't think there's anything major going on right now. Actually, the partners took half the team to a conference in Detroit this weekend. Vanessa wasn't on the list though." I maintained my expression with effort. "Must be something else then." She mentioned a client meeting. Kelsey shrugged and the conversation moved on, but the information lodged in my chest like a physical weight. Not only was Vanessa lying about working late, but the specific account she'd mentioned had already been completed. The elaborate architecture of her deception was becoming clearer by the day. When I returned home, the apartment was still empty. I sat in the dark living room, phone in hand, and considered my options. I could text her, confront her with this new information. I could call her. I could track her location. Instead, I opened Instagram and began scrolling mindlessly, a welcome distraction from the thoughts circling my mind. And that's when I saw it. A friend of a friend had posted a series of stories from Meridian, the upscale nightclub where Aiden had spotted Vanessa last week. The camera panned across the VIP section, capturing snippets of Chicago's young professional scene enjoying bottle service and exclusivity. And there, in the background of the third video, unmistakable despite the dim lighting and brief frame, was Vanessa, her head thrown back in laughter, her hand resting intimately on the arm of a man I didn't recognize. The timestamp showed it had been posted 17 minutes ago. I screenshotted the image before the story expired, a strange calm descending over me once more. Here it was, digital proof of what I already knew. I considered sending it to her immediately, ending this charade once and for all. But something stopped me. A realization that exposing her now would only lead to more denials, more gaslighting, more accusations that I was stalking her by seeing a public social media post. And ultimately, it would rob me of the opportunity to see how far this deception would go if left unchallenged. So I put my phone away and went to bed, falling into a dreamless sleep that was interrupted at 1:43 a.m. when Vanessa finally came home. Again, I feigned sleep as she went through her now familiar routine of showering away the evidence of her evening. In the morning, she complained of a headache from staring at spreadsheets all night. I nodded sympathetically and made her coffee, watching as she constructed more lies to fill in the details of her fictional work meeting. "Henderson is being so demanding," she sighed, rubbing her temples. "But I think we finally made progress last night." "That's good," I replied, wondering how long she could maintain this alternate reality where Henderson was still an active account requiring late-night attention. The weekend brought a new development. Vanessa announced she needed to attend a last-minute conference in New York from Monday to Wednesday. Something about digital marketing trends that required her immediate presence. "It's a great opportunity," she explained as she packed Sunday evening. "The firm is sending 3 of us to represent the Chicago office." I nodded, helping her select outfits appropriate for a professional conference she wouldn't be attending. "Sounds important. Who else is going?" "Just Lisa and Kevin," she answered smoothly. Lisa was her colleague I'd met at the firm's holiday party. Kevin was supposedly her team lead, though I'd never met him. "Will you have time to see any shows?" I asked, maintaining the fiction. "Probably not this trip. It's going to be wall-to-wall sessions and networking events." She zipped her suitcase closed. "I'll try to call each night, but the schedule looks packed." "Don't worry about it," I assured her. "Focus on the conference. I'll be fine." The next morning, I drove her to O'Hare for her 9 a.m. flight, kissing her goodbye at the departure's drop-off. As I pulled away, I watched in the rearview mirror as she wheeled her suitcase into the terminal, phone already pressed to her ear. Back at home, I opened my laptop and did something I'd resisted for weeks. I logged into our shared American Airlines account to check her actual flight details, telling myself I just wanted confirmation of what I already knew. There it was. Vanessa Bennett, Chicago to LaGuardia, 9:05 a.m. Return flight, Wednesday 7:30 p.m. So she was actually going to New York. That part, at least, wasn't a lie. But I doubted very much that Lisa and Kevin would be on that flight with her, or that marketing seminars would fill her time in the city. I closed the laptop, a hollow feeling expanding in my chest. The confirmation should have brought clarity, perhaps even relief at having my suspicions validated. Instead, it only deepened the sense of unreality that had pervaded my life since Mark's call. That evening, Vanessa texted a picture of the New York skyline from what appeared to be a hotel room window, followed by, "Made it. First session was boring but dinner with the team was fun. Miss you." I replied with appropriate enthusiasm and supportive emojis, playing my part in this elaborate performance. Later, she called briefly, filling me in on fictitious conference details while I murmured appropriate responses. Tuesday followed the same pattern, occasional texts about speakers and sessions, another brief call where she sounded slightly tipsy from team drinks. On Wednesday morning, I woke to a text sent at 1:38 a.m. "Sorry I didn't call. Long day of sessions and fell asleep as soon as I got back to the hotel. Can't wait to see you tomorrow night." I was making coffee when my phone buzzed with a call from Mark. "Hey, have you seen Aiden's Instagram this morning?" "No, why?" "You need to check it. Now." I put Mark on speaker and opened Instagram, navigating to Aiden's profile. His most recent post, from 5 hours ago, showed him with a group of friends at what appeared to be a rooftop bar in New York. The caption read, "Unexpected NYC reunion. #OldFriendsNoRituals." And there, among the group, was Vanessa. Her arm around the same dark-haired man from the Meridian video, both of them clearly intoxicated and intimate. The location tag showed the Skylark NYC. "That's not all," Mark continued. "Check his stories." I swiped to Aiden's stories and felt my stomach drop. A video showed the same group later in the evening, now at what appeared to be a nightclub. The camera panned across the table before focusing briefly on Vanessa and her companion kissing passionately, oblivious to being recorded. The timestamp showed 12:52 a.m., less than an hour before her text about falling asleep at the hotel. "I'm guessing that's not a marketing conference," Mark said quietly. "No," I agreed, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. "It's not. What are you going to do?" I considered the question as I stared at the frozen image of my girlfriend kissing another man. 2 years of building a life together, of integrating our friend groups and families, of planning a future, all of it built on a foundation that was apparently fictional. "Still nothing," I finally answered. "She comes home tonight. Let's see what story she tells." Mark was silent for a moment. "You're seriously just going to act like you haven't seen this?" "For now. I want to see how far this goes." After ending the call with Mark, I screenshotted Aiden's post and stories, saving the evidence that was hiding in plain sight on social media. Then I texted Vanessa as if nothing had happened. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Want me to pick you up from the airport?" Her reply came quickly. "That would be amazing. My flight lands at 7:30. Terminal 3. I continued my workday in a state of strange detachment, reviewing code and attending meetings while part of my mind remained fixed on the evening ahead. By now, Vanessa must have seen Aiden's post. She must know she'd been captured on social media with her other relationship fully displayed. Yet she was continuing with the conference facade, apparently believing I hadn't seen, or wouldn't see, the evidence. How would she handle the flight home? Would she manufacture some excuse to change her return plans? Would she concoct a story to explain the photos if confronted? Or would she simply hope I remained in the dark, continuing to believe her lies despite their increasingly public nature? As it turned out, I didn't have to wait until evening for the next development. At 2:17 p.m., my phone buzzed with a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Hello? Is this Daniel?" A woman's voice, unfamiliar. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Eliza. I think we need to talk about Vanessa." My heart rate accelerated. "Okay. I'm listening. Well, until about 2 hours ago, I thought I was James Foster's girlfriend. James is the man your girlfriend has been seeing in New York. And apparently Chicago as well." I sat down heavily in my desk chair. "I see. I'm guessing from your reaction that you already knew something was going on." "I had my suspicions." "Recently confirmed." Eliza let out a bitter laugh. "Well, that makes 2 of us. I just saw those Instagram posts." Vanessa's face was all over them, and when I confronted James, he finally admitted they'd been seeing each other for months. He claims he was going to end things with me, that she's the one. Whatever that means coming from a cheater. The pieces were aligning with devastating clarity now. Not just cheating, but a fully developed relationship with this James person. Extended enough for him to consider Vanessa the one worth leaving his actual girlfriend for. I'm sorry, I said, unsure what else to offer this stranger who was now linked to me through our partner's deception. I'm not calling for sympathy, Eliza clarified. I just thought you should know the full picture before she comes home with whatever story she's planning to tell you. I appreciate that. Truly. One more thing, Eliza added, her voice hardening. I posted screenshots of Aiden's stories on my own Instagram and tagged James. It's already circulating among our friends. I don't know how connected your social circles are with Vanessa's, but it's out there now. After we disconnected, I sat staring at my phone, contemplating this new dimension. Not only was Vanessa's deception exposed on social media through Aiden's innocent posts, but now Eliza's deliberate sharing had accelerated the spread. The private betrayal was rapidly becoming public knowledge. I opened Instagram and, sure enough, notifications were already appearing. Mutual friends had seen either Aiden's original posts or Eliza's screenshots, and the inevitable questions were beginning. Dan, have you seen this? Is this Vanessa? Dude, call me ASAP. WTF is going on with these pics of V? I ignored them all, a strange calm settling over me again. The truth was revealing itself without any effort on my part, exactly as I'd predicted. All those months of questioning and being told I was paranoid, of having my reality denied, and now the evidence was spreading through our social networks like wildfire, requiring no action from me whatsoever. At 4:12 p.m., my phone rang again. Vanessa. I considered letting it go to voicemail but decided to answer. Hey, Daniel. Her voice sounded strained, tearful. I need to talk to you. Okay. I kept my tone neutral, waiting. There's been a change of plans. The conference is ending early, and I'm trying to get an earlier flight home. We need to talk in person. About what? I asked, maintaining my performance of ignorance even as I recognized this as her scrambling to get ahead of the social media exposure. A pause. Just, some things have happened. I'd rather discuss it face to face. Is everything okay? You sound upset. Another pause, longer this time. No, everything is not okay. But I can't talk about it right now. I'll let you know when I get an earlier flight. After we hung up, I checked the airline account again. Sure enough, she was attempting to change her reservation to an earlier flight, the 3:30 p.m. that had already departed. She was waitlisted for the 5:45 p.m. instead. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair, considering my options. I could continue the charade, pick her up at the airport tonight, and let her deliver whatever story she'd constructed to explain the social media evidence. I could confront her now, over the phone, ending the pretense immediately. Or I could simply, not be there when she returned, leaving her to face the consequences of her actions without my presence as a buffer. The last option held a certain poetic justice. After months of her disappearing acts and fictional late nights, perhaps it was fitting that I simply wouldn't be there when she needed me to be. I made my decision. At 5:30 p.m., I texted Vanessa. Something came up. Can't pick you up from airport. Sorry. Her response was immediate and panicked. What? Please, I really need to see you when I land. We need to talk. Can't tonight. Stay at your place. We'll talk tomorrow. She hadn't maintained a separate apartment for over a year, not since moving into my place. The message was clear. Don't come home tonight. Daniel, please. I can explain everything. It's not what it looks like. I stared at those words, it's not what it looks like, and felt a surge of anger break through my calm facade. After weeks of gaslighting, of being told my concerns were manifestations of paranoia, she was still attempting to deny what was now plainly evident to our entire social circle. I didn't reply. Instead, I packed an overnight bag and texted Mark. Need a place to crash tonight. Vanessa's coming home from NYC and I don't want to be there. Couch is yours, Mark replied immediately. Aiden feels terrible about posting those pics, BTW. He had no idea you didn't know. Nothing for him to feel terrible about. He just showed me the truth. As I drove to Mark's apartment, my phone continued to buzz with notifications and messages, from mutual friends, from Vanessa, even one from her sister asking what was going on. I ignored them all, focusing on the road ahead and the strange sense of liberation that was beginning to replace the hollow feeling in my chest. For the first time in months, I wasn't questioning my own perceptions or managing someone else's deception. The truth was out there now, visible to everyone, requiring no explanation or defense from me. Vanessa's lie had finally destroyed itself, exactly as I'd known it would. Mark's apartment was exactly what I needed that night, a sanctuary away from the storm of messages and notifications that continued to flood my phone. His place was small but comfortable, the living room dominated by a massive gaming setup where he streamed to his modest following 3 nights a week. Beer, he offered as I dropped my overnight bag by the couch. Something stronger if you have it. He nodded and poured 2 whiskeys, neat. We sat in companionable silence for a few minutes, the amber liquid burning pleasantly as I scrolled through the chaos unfolding on my phone. Vanessa had texted 17 times and called 11. Her messages evolved from desperate explanations. Those photos are completely misleading. To anger, I can't believe you're ghosting me right now. To tearful please just talk to me, I'm falling apart. I read them all but responded to none. She land yet? Mark asked. About 20 minutes ago, I confirmed. Probably in an Uber right now, realizing I'm serious about not being home. What's your game plan here? I considered the question as I took another sip. Give her the night to stew. Meet her somewhere public tomorrow. End it cleanly. That's it? After all this, you're just going for a clean break? I shrugged. What else is there? Screaming? Accusations? The evidence is literally all over social media. There's nothing to argue about. Mark studied me for a moment. You're handling this really differently than I expected. How did you expect me to handle it? I don't know. When Tara cheated on me in college, I lost my mind. Drunk texts, showing up at her dorm, making a scene at parties. It was ugly. I nodded, remembering that tumultuous period in our friendship. That's not me, clearly. But man, it's almost scary how calm you are. Like you've completely detached. Had I detached? Perhaps, but it felt more like clarity than detachment. After months of emotional manipulation, of having my legitimate concerns dismissed as paranoia, of constantly questioning my own perceptions, this exposed truth felt like finally breaking the surface after being held underwater. I'm not detached, I explained. I'm just done fighting for a relationship that was apparently fictional. My phone buzzed again. Vanessa, I'm at the apartment. Where are you? Please come home so we can talk about this. I silenced it without responding. Mark and I spent the rest of the evening catching up on his latest game development project, carefully avoiding further discussion of my imploding relationship. Around midnight, he headed to bed while I made up the couch, grateful for the distraction-free sanctuary. Sleep came surprisingly easily, perhaps due to the emotional exhaustion of the past few weeks. I woke to sunlight streaming through Mark's living room window and the smell of coffee brewing. Morning, sunshine, Mark called from the kitchen. Your phone's been blowing up for about an hour. Figured I'd let you sleep through it. I checked the screen, 8 missed calls from Vanessa, 3 from her sister Leah, and 1 from my mother. That last one was unexpected. My mom called, I noted with confusion. Yeah, about that, Mark grimaced. This thing has kind of escalated overnight. What do you mean? He handed me a mug of coffee and pulled up Instagram on his phone. Remember Eliza? The other girlfriend who called you yesterday? Hard to forget. Well, she didn't just share those initial screenshots. She went full scorched earth. He passed me his phone, open to Eliza's profile. Her latest post was a collage of screenshots, text messages between her and James, photos of them together spanning at least a year, and right in the center, the damning image of Vanessa and James from Aiden's stories. The caption was brutal. To @Vanessa Bennett and everyone else who thought James Foster was in an exclusive relationship with them. Surprise! He's been with me for 3 years. Check your DMs, I've sent receipts to everyone who's commented or messaged me. #cheater exposed #took him play that game. The post had thousands of likes and hundreds of comments, many from mutual friends and acquaintances expressing shock and offering support to both Eliza and, surprisingly, me. My name had been tagged in several comments, drawing me into a public drama I hadn't sought. It gets worse, Mark said, scrolling to his Facebook app. Someone shared it to the Chicago Young Professionals group. That's probably how your mom found out. Sure enough, Eliza's Instagram expose had been screenshot and shared to the networking group where my mother, a real estate agent, was an active member. The comments section was filled with local professionals expressing outrage, tagging people who might know those involved, and generally treating the situation like the latest juicy reality show. I set down the phone, a headache forming behind my eyes. So much for handling this privately. You okay? Was I? The public nature of the exposure added a new dimension to an already painful situation. It wasn't just our immediate circle now, It was extended networks, professional connections, family members. People I'd never met were discussing the intimate details of my relationship's implosion. I need to call my mom, I said finally. I stepped onto Mark's balcony for privacy, bracing myself for the conversation ahead. Daniel, my mother answered immediately. Are you all right? I've been trying to reach you. I'm fine, Mom. Just processing. Why didn't you tell me what was happening? I had to find out from Sheila Donovan's Facebook post, of all things. I sighed. Sheila was her colleague at the real estate agency, known for sharing dramatic social media content. It all happened pretty quickly. I only confirmed my suspicions a few days ago. Where are you now? Do you want to come stay with us for a while? I'm at Mark's. And no, I need to handle this myself. I paused, considering how much to share. I'm meeting Vanessa today to end things officially. My mother was quiet for a moment. She called me last night, crying, saying there was a misunderstanding, that she needed to reach you. That was unexpected. Vanessa reaching out to my mother showed a level of desperation I hadn't anticipated. There's no misunderstanding, Mom. She's been living a double life for months. That's what I told her, my mother replied, surprising me. I said if there was an innocent explanation, she wouldn't have been photographed kissing another man in New York while telling you she was at a conference. I found myself smiling slightly at my mother's bluntness. Thanks for having my back. Always. Just, be careful today. People can become unpredictable when they're desperate. After promising to update her later, I ended the call and rejoined Mark in the kitchen, where he was making breakfast. How's Mama Hayes taking her son's scandalous love life? He asked, sliding a plate of eggs toward me. Better than expected. Apparently Vanessa called her last night. Mark's eyebrows shot up. Bold move. Desperate move, I corrected, checking my phone again. The missed calls had continued accumulating, now including several from numbers I didn't recognize. I think I need to get this over with sooner rather than later. What's the plan? I considered my options. Meeting at the apartment seemed unwise, too private, too emotional, too many shared memories in that space. A public location would keep the conversation civil and provide a natural endpoint. I'll suggest coffee at Morton's, I decided, referring to a cafe equidistant between my apartment and Mark's place. Neutral territory. I composed a brief text to Vanessa, I'll meet you at Morton's at noon. 1 hour, in public. That's all I'm offering right now. Her response came instantly, thank you. I'll be there. I love you. Those last 3 words felt like a mockery after everything that had transpired. I didn't respond. The cafe was busy when I arrived at precisely noon, the Saturday lunch crowd providing the perfect background noise to ensure our conversation wouldn't be overheard but also couldn't escalate into a scene. I chose a table in the corner, positioned to see the entrance. Vanessa arrived 5 minutes later, looking nothing like the polished marketing professional she usually presented to the world. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen, her typically impeccable outfit replaced by jeans and an oversized sweater. She spotted me immediately but hesitated at the entrance, as if suddenly unsure of her welcome. I didn't stand to greet her or wave her over. I simply waited, maintaining the emotional distance I'd cultivated over the past weeks. She approached slowly, sliding into the seat across from me. Thank you for meeting me. I nodded but said nothing, waiting. Daniel, I know how this looks, but... Stop, I interrupted, keeping my voice low and even. If you're about to tell me it's not what it looks like, save it. We both know exactly what it is. She flinched slightly. Okay. You're right. But can I at least explain how it happened? Does it matter? Will any explanation change the fact that you've been living a double life for months while making me feel crazy for suspecting something was wrong? Tears welled in her eyes. I never meant to hurt you. The cliché landed like a slap. That's a lie, Vanessa. You made deliberate choices, repeatedly, knowing they would devastate me if discovered. You didn't accidentally fall into a relationship with James. You didn't accidentally construct elaborate lies about work meetings and conferences. You didn't accidentally gaslight me whenever I questioned inconsistencies in your stories. Gaslight? That's not fair. Isn't it? How many times did I ask about late nights or missed calls or changed passwords? How many times did you tell me I was being paranoid or controlling? That my trust issues were the real problem in our relationship? She looked down at the table, unable to maintain eye contact. I was scared of losing you. So your solution was to emotionally manipulate me while carrying on another relationship? How was that ever going to end well? I don't know, she whispered, a tear sliding down her cheek. I kept telling myself it would burn out with James, that it was just an infatuation, that what we had was real and permanent. What we had was a fiction, I corrected. Built on lies you told and truths you withheld. The waitress approached, hesitating when she sensed the tension at our table. Can I get you anything? Just a black coffee, I said. Same, Vanessa added quietly. When the waitress left, Vanessa leaned forward. What you need to understand is that James means nothing to me. It was a mistake, a stupid, terrible mistake. I couldn't help the bitter laugh that escaped. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or saying something hurtful in an argument. What you did was a sustained campaign of deception that lasted for months. And according to James's actual girlfriend, yes, I've spoken with Eliza, you weren't just some fling to him. He was planning to leave her for you. Vanessa's eyes widened. You talked to Eliza? When? Yesterday. Right after she saw the social media posts of you and James together. Oh God. She put her head in her hands. This is a nightmare. A nightmare you created, I pointed out as the waitress delivered our coffees. And now it's playing out very publicly thanks to Eliza's Instagram revenge tour. Vanessa looked up sharply. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone and showed her Eliza's post, now up to over 5,000 likes and nearly 1,000 comments. Congratulations. You're trending in certain circles of Chicago. She scrolled through the post with growing horror, her face draining of color. She's deliberately trying to destroy us. Both of us. Can you blame her? James apparently told her you were the one. That he was leaving her for you. After 3 years together. He said what? Vanessa looked genuinely shocked. That's not. We never discussed. I took my phone back. Seems like everyone was lying to everyone. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of multiple deceptions settling between us. What happens now? She finally asked, her voice small. Now we break up, I said simply. I'll arrange to have your things packed and delivered to your sister's place. I'll need your key to the apartment. All contact goes through text only, and only regarding logistics of separating our lives. Just like that? After 2 years, you can end it so coldly? I met her gaze directly. This ended weeks ago, Vanessa. The moment you decided that lying to me was easier than being honest. The moment you made me question my own perceptions rather than admit your betrayal. Everything since then has just been you maintaining a fiction I was finally able to see through. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I still love you, Daniel. Despite everything, that was never a lie. But it wasn't enough, was it? Not enough to keep you faithful, not enough to choose honesty, not enough to respect me as a partner. I took a sip of my coffee. And now it's not enough to save what's been broken. Please, she whispered. People make mistakes. Relationships can recover from infidelity. This isn't just about infidelity, I explained, keeping my voice even. It's about trust at the most fundamental level. You didn't just sleep with someone else, you constructed an elaborate alternate reality and made me feel crazy for glimpsing the truth. That's not something I can move past. The finality in my tone seemed to reach her. She sat back, wiping her tears with a napkin. So that's it? No chance for redemption? This isn't about redemption, Vanessa. It's about consequences. Every choice has them. We finished our coffees in silence. When it was time to leave, she reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. For what it's worth, I am truly sorry. I withdrew my hand. I believe you. But it doesn't change anything. Outside the cafe, we faced each other one last time. She handed me her key to the apartment, her hand trembling slightly. What will you tell people? About why we broke up. I won't need to tell anyone anything, I pointed out. The evidence is already public, but if asked, I'll simply say we wanted different things. It's the truth, isn't it? You wanted the excitement of a double life. I wanted honesty. She flinched at my bluntness. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Vanessa. But it is what it is. As I watched her walk away, shoulders hunched against both the spring breeze and the weight of consequences, I felt a complex mix of emotions, sadness for what had been lost, relief that the deception was over, and a strange, quiet pride in how I'd handled myself throughout the ordeal. My phone buzzed with a text from Mark. How'd it go? It's done, I replied. Heading back to the apartment now. Want company? Thanks, but I need some time alone. The apartment felt different when I returned, emptier somehow, despite all of Vanessa's belongings still in place. I walked through each room, noting the shared memories embedded in every space, the couch where we'd spent countless movie nights, the kitchen where we'd attempted ambitious recipes together, the bedroom where I'd once felt safe and loved. I sat on the edge of the bed, finally allowing myself to fully feel the loss. Not just of Vanessa, but of the future I'd imagined with her. The ring I'd been saving for, the life we'd planned to build together, all of it had been constructed on a foundation that proved illusory. My phone continued buzzing throughout the afternoon, friends checking in, family offering support, even a few messages from people I barely knew expressing sympathy for the public nature of the breakup. I responded to some, ignored others, and tried to process the strange new reality where my private heartbreak had become public consumption. Around dinner time, I received an unexpected text from Eliza. "Hope you're holding up okay. Sorry if my post made things harder for you. Just thought everyone deserved the truth." I considered ignoring it but finally replied, "The truth was coming out regardless. Your post just accelerated the timeline. Still, didn't mean to drag you into the spotlight. I appreciate that. How are you doing with all this?" Angry, hurt, relieved in a weird way. 3 years with someone who was living a lie, at least now I know. The parallel to my own situation wasn't lost on me. I understand that feeling all too well. We exchanged a few more messages, nothing deep, just two people processing similar betrayals in real time. It was oddly comforting to connect with someone who truly understood the specific pain of discovering a partner's double life. As evening settled over the apartment, I began the practical task of separating my life from Vanessa's. I created a catalog of her belongings, arranged for a moving company to pack and deliver them to her sister's address, and made a list of shared accounts that would need to be disentangled. The methodical approach helped keep emotion at bay, transforming an overwhelming heartbreak into manageable, actionable steps. By midnight, I had a comprehensive plan for completely separating our intertwined lives within 2 weeks. I was about to turn in when my phone buzzed with another text from Vanessa. "I know you asked for space, but I need to tell you something important. James just called me. He's been telling Eliza that I pursued him, that I knew about her all along. It's not true. Please believe at least this much. I didn't know he was in another relationship." I was deceived too. I stared at the message, considering its implications. Did it matter if Vanessa had known about Eliza? Did one layer of deception more or less change the fundamental breach of trust in our relationship? After careful consideration, I replied, "Whether you knew about Eliza doesn't change what you did to me. But for what it's worth, I believe you. James seems to have lied to everyone involved." Her response came quickly, "Thank you for that much, at least. I'm so sorry, Daniel, for everything." I didn't reply further, setting my phone aside and finally allowing exhaustion to pull me towards sleep. Tomorrow would bring more logistics, more conversations, more untangling of the life we'd built together. But for tonight, I had done enough. As I drifted off, I realized something unexpected. The calm I'd maintained throughout this ordeal wasn't detachment as Mark had suggested. It was self-preservation. By stepping back and allowing Vanessa's deception to collapse under its own weight, I had protected myself from the gaslighting that had made me doubt my own perceptions for months. Sometimes the most powerful move isn't confrontation but strategic retreat, creating space for the truth to emerge on its own terms, undistorted by denials and manipulations. Vanessa had called me paranoid for suspecting what was actually happening, but in the end, it wasn't paranoia that exposed her double life. It was simply patience, patience enough to let her lie destroy itself. The next 2 weeks unfolded with the methodical precision of a well-planned project. I approached the dismantling of my relationship with Vanessa like a system to be debugged, identifying dependencies, resolving conflicts, and refactoring what remained of my life without her. Monday morning, the moving company arrived to pack Vanessa's belongings. I'd arranged to be at work during the process, sparing us both the awkwardness of another face-to-face encounter. My only instructions to the movers had been simple: everything on the inventory list goes, nothing else. That evening, I returned to an apartment that felt both emptier and somehow more mine than it had in years. Her decorative touches were gone, the abstract paintings she'd carefully selected, the throw pillows that always seemed to multiply, the scented candles that had perfumed our shared space. What remained was more minimal, more functional, more reflective of just me. I ordered takeout and ate at the kitchen counter, scrolling through messages from friends checking in. Their concern was touching but occasionally exhausting, each conversation requiring me to revisit the betrayal I was working to process. I responded to some, postponed others, and tried to maintain boundaries around my emotional energy. Tuesday brought the first wave of administrative untangling. I removed Vanessa from our shared Netflix and Spotify accounts, changed the passwords on our Amazon Prime and utility bills, and contacted our renter's insurance to update the policy. Each small severance felt like cutting a thread in a complex web that had connected our lives. By Wednesday, the social media storm had begun to subside. Eliza's explosive post had cycled out of most people's immediate attention, replaced by newer dramas and concerns. But within our immediate circles, the situation remained a topic of fascination and gossip. People keep asking me for details, Mark complained during our lunch meetup. Like I'm some authority on the whole mess. What do you tell them? I asked, picking at my sandwich. To mind their own business, mostly. But they're persistent. Everyone loves watching someone else's life implode from a safe distance. I grimaced. Glad I could provide the entertainment. Sorry, man. Didn't mean it like that. Mark studied me carefully. How are you really doing with all this? I considered the question honestly. The initial shock had faded, leaving a dull ache that surfaced at unexpected moments, when I found one of Vanessa's hairpins under the couch, or when a song we'd both loved came on the radio, or when I automatically reached for my phone to share a funny moment with her. I'm okay, I finally answered. Not great, not terrible. Just, processing. Processing, Mark repeated. You've been processing since this whole thing started. Like you're running some kind of emotional diagnostic program instead of, feeling things. What do you want me to do? Fall apart? Rage? Drink myself into oblivion? Maybe? At least it would be a normal human reaction. I set down my sandwich, suddenly not hungry. There's no normal way to handle finding out your girlfriend of 2 years has been living a double life. I'm dealing with it my way. Mark held up his hands in surrender. Fair enough. I just worry about you bottling everything up. I'm not bottling anything. I'm compartmentalizing. There's a difference. We finished lunch with lighter conversation, but Mark's concern lingered in my mind as I returned to work. Was I processing things in a healthy way? Or was my methodical approach to the breakup just another form of avoidance? Thursday evening, I received an unexpected email from Vanessa's sister Leah. Daniel, I hope this message finds you well, all things considered. I wanted to reach out to thank you for handling the moving arrangements so respectfully. Many men would have responded to betrayal with pettiness or destruction, but you've maintained your dignity throughout this difficult time. Vanessa is staying with me for now. She's not in a good place, but that's not your concern anymore. I just thought you should know that I don't condone what she did. Neither does anyone else in the family. You were always good to her, and you deserved better than this. If you ever need anything, or just want to talk, my door remains open to you. Take care, Leah. I stared at the message for several minutes, unsure how to respond. Leah and I had always gotten along well, and I appreciated her reaching out, but maintaining contact with Vanessa's family seemed like an unnecessary complication in an already complex situation. Eventually, I replied with simple gratitude for her message and good wishes for the future, politely but firmly closing that door. Friday night, after declining several invitations to get back out there from well-meaning friends, I found myself alone in my apartment with an unexpected sense of peace. The week had been exhausting, each day bringing new logistics to handle, new conversations to navigate, new emotions to process. But as I settled onto the couch with a book I'd been meaning to read for months, I realized something important. I was going to be okay. Not immediately, not completely, but eventually. The betrayal hadn't destroyed me. The public nature of the breakup hadn't diminished me. I was wounded but healing, hurt but not broken. The weekend passed quietly. I caught up on chores that had been neglected during the chaos, went for long runs along the lakefront, and began researching a coding certification I'd been putting off while focused on building a future with Vanessa. Small steps toward a new chapter. Monday morning brought an unexpected development. As I was heading into my office building, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Hello? Daniel Hayes? This is Claire Donovan from the Tribune. I'm working on a piece about relationship deception in the digital age, and your recent experience came to my attention. Would you be willing to discuss? No comment, I interrupted, ending the call immediately. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, a new wave of disbelief washing over me. A reporter? My breakup had attracted the attention of an actual newspaper? The violation of privacy felt like a fresh wound on top of the still healing original injury. Inside my office, I googled Claire Donovan Tribune and confirmed she was indeed a lifestyle reporter with the Chicago Tribune. Further searches revealed she had recently published articles on social media's impact on modern relationships, pieces that combined personal anecdotes with expert commentary on cultural trends. I was still processing this bizarre turn when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Claire from the Tribune again. I understand your reluctance to speak publicly, but I want to emphasize that our piece would focus on the broader phenomenon, not just your specific case. Many people are experiencing similar situations in our hyper-connected world. Your perspective could help others navigating these complex waters. I didn't respond, but the message lingered in my mind throughout the morning. Was my personal heartbreak really part of some broader cultural phenomenon worth analyzing in a newspaper? The thought was both absurd and oddly validating. My experience wasn't unique, wasn't a reflection of some personal failure, but rather one instance of a pattern playing out across countless relationships. By lunchtime, I'd received another text from Claire offering anonymity if I preferred, and an email from a producer at a local morning show inquiring about a segment on relationship transparency in the age of social media. The vultures were circling, hoping to transform my private pain into public content. I called Mark during my lunch break. The media is suddenly interested in my breakup. What the hell is happening? Yeah, about that. Mark sounded sheepish. Eliza's post kind of evolved. What does that mean? Someone created a TikTok about it, one of those storytime videos that went semi-viral. Then a few relationship podcasts picked it up as a discussion topic. I think it hit some kind of algorithm sweet spot. I closed my eyes, trying to maintain my composure. Are you telling me my breakup is trending? Not you specifically. More the concept, the letting the lie destroy itself angle. People are fascinated by the strategy of not confronting a cheater but instead just stepping back and watching the truth emerge naturally. It wasn't a strategy, I protested. It was self-preservation. Well, whatever it was, people are calling it the Daniel method now. I nearly dropped my phone. They're what? Yeah, it's become shorthand in certain online spaces for letting a liar self-destruct through their own deception rather than calling them out directly. This was surreal. My personal approach to a painful betrayal had somehow been extracted, labeled, and converted into an internet-approved relationship tactic, all without my knowledge or consent. This is insane, I muttered. Welcome to 2023, Mark replied. Everything's content now, even heartbreak. After hanging up, I spent my lunch hour diving into this bizarre new reality. Sure enough, searching the Daniel method relationship yielded multiple TikTok videos, podcast episodes, and blog posts discussing the merits of stepping back and allowing a suspected cheater to expose themselves rather than confronting them directly. Most didn't mention me by name, instead referring to a Chicago software engineer or the guy whose girlfriend's lie destroyed itself. But a few had clearly connected the dots, including screenshots from Eliza's original post where my Instagram had been tagged. By the end of the workday, I'd made a decision. I would not be participating in this narrative. I turned down all media requests, locked down my social media accounts, and sent a firm message to the TikTok creator who had first popularized the Daniel method, asking them to stop using my situation for content. Their response was both apologetic and enlightening. I'm so sorry if this has caused you distress. I never intended to invade your privacy. Your approach just resonated with so many people who've been gaslit in relationships. It's empowering to see someone reclaim their agency by refusing to engage with manipulation. But I understand and respect your request. I've taken down the original video and will refrain from further coverage. I stared at those words, reclaim their agency by refusing to engage with manipulation, and felt an unexpected surge of emotion. Was that what I had done? Had my instinctive withdrawal from Vanessa's deception been not just self-protective but somehow empowering for others in similar situations? The thought lingered as I drove home, casting my actions in a new light. I had been focused solely on my own survival, on maintaining my sanity in the face of persistent gaslighting. The idea that this personal response might represent something meaningful to others hadn't occurred to me. That evening, as I was preparing dinner, my phone rang with Vanessa's number. We hadn't spoken directly since our coffee shop meeting 2 weeks earlier, communicating only through brief, practical texts about logistics. I hesitated before answering. Hello? Daniel. Her voice sounded strained, tired. Have you seen what's happening online? If you mean the media interest and social media coverage, yes. It's horrible. People are dissecting our relationship like it's a case study. I'm getting messages from strangers calling me terrible names. Someone even contacted my workplace. I leaned against the kitchen counter, unsure how to respond. On one hand, I hadn't sought or encouraged this public spectacle. On the other, it was a direct consequence of her actions, amplified by Eliza's public exposure. I'm sorry you're experiencing that, I said finally. I've turned down all media requests and asked the original content creator to stop using our situation. Thank you. She paused. But the damage is already done. My sister says it's called the Daniel method now. They're making you sound like some relationship guru who masterfully exposed a cheater. That wasn't my intention. I know. Another pause. That's actually why I'm calling. Despite everything, I know you're not vindictive. You didn't plan for this to become public. You just stepped back and let the truth come out on its own. The accuracy of her assessment surprised me. Yes. It's ironic, she said, her voice softening. In the end, you understood me better than I understood myself. You saw through the lies I was telling both of us. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I remained silent. Anyway, she continued after a moment, I'm starting therapy next week. James too, separately of course. We're both trying to understand why we did what we did, why we hurt the people who cared about us. That sounds like a positive step. It's necessary, she corrected. This level of public exposure forces you to confront yourself in ways you can't avoid. She took a deep breath. I just wanted you to know I don't blame you for any of this. It was my deception that started it all. The consequences are mine to bear. The acknowledgement was unexpected, a genuine acceptance of responsibility without qualification or excuse. I appreciate you saying that, I said honestly. Take care, Daniel. After she hung up, I stood in my kitchen for several minutes, processing the conversation. It hadn't provided closure exactly, that would come with time and distance, but there was something valuable in hearing Vanessa take full ownership of her actions and their consequences. The following week brought a gradual return to normalcy. The media inquiries tapered off as newer stories captured public attention. My friends stopped treating me like I might shatter at any moment. Work provided structure and purpose as I immersed myself in a challenging new project. Then on Wednesday evening, I received an email that disrupted my carefully reconstructed equilibrium. From Eliza Carter, subject, coffee? Daniel. This might seem strange given the circumstances of our connection, but I'm going to be in your area tomorrow for a job interview and wondered if you'd be open to grabbing coffee briefly. No pressure either way. There's no agenda here beyond perhaps finding some closure through conversation with the one other person who truly understands the specific brand of deception we both experienced. Let me know, Eliza. I read the email twice, weighing the potential benefits against the possible complications. On one hand, meeting with James's other girlfriend might provide insights I couldn't gain elsewhere. On the other, it risked reopening wounds that were just beginning to heal. After careful consideration, I replied, coffee works. Morton's at 5:30? Her response came quickly, perfect. See you then. The next day at work, I found myself distracted, wondering what Eliza hoped to gain from our meeting. We had exchanged a few messages immediately after the exposure, but nothing substantial. What could she possibly want to discuss now, weeks later? Morton's was quieter than usual when I arrived, the after-work crowd not yet materialized. I spotted Eliza immediately, petite with dark curly hair, wearing a tailored blazer over jeans, looking more composed than I would have expected given the circumstances. Daniel, she greeted me, extending her hand. Thanks for agreeing to this. Of course, I replied, shaking her hand before settling across from her at the small table. How was your interview? Good, I think. A fresh start in a new city seems appealing right now. I can imagine. The waitress took our orders, Americano for me, chai latte for Eliza, before leaving us to the slightly awkward silence of two strangers connected by betrayal. So, I began, why did you want to meet? Eliza looked down at her hands briefly before meeting my gaze directly. Honestly? Curiosity, partly. I've spent weeks trying to understand how I missed the signs for 3 years. When I saw how you handled the situation, stepping back rather than confronting, it made me wonder if that approach might have saved me a lot of pain if I'd tried it sooner. It wasn't a calculated strategy, I explained. Just self-preservation after months of gaslighting. But it worked, she pointed out. By withdrawing your investment and maintaining the lie, you created space for the truth to emerge organically. I couldn't argue with her assessment. I suppose so. The other reason I wanted to meet, she continued, is to apologize for the social media explosion. I posted those screenshots in a moment of raw anger. I never anticipated the chain reaction it would trigger. You couldn't have predicted that. Maybe not. But I should have considered how it might impact you. You were collateral damage in my attempt to expose James. Our drinks arrived, providing a brief pause in the conversation. I stirred my coffee, considering her words. In a strange way, I finally said, the public exposure made it cleaner. There was no room for denial or manipulation when everything was so visibly documented. Eliza nodded. I've thought the same thing. As painful as the public humiliation was, it forced a confrontation with reality that might have taken much longer in private. We fell into surprisingly easy conversation after that, comparing notes on the subtle signs we had both ignored or rationalized in our respective relationships. The parallel patterns were striking, the mysterious work emergencies, the protective passwords, the accusations of paranoia whenever questions arose. He used our schedules against us, Eliza observed. My hospital shifts meant I was unavailable predictably, creating perfect windows for him to be with you and Vanessa. While my regular office hours and Vanessa's supposedly flexible marketing schedule created different windows, I added, seeing the calculated structure of the deception more clearly than ever. As we finished our drinks, Eliza pulled out her phone. "There's one more thing. Have you been in contact with James since everything exploded?" "No. No reason to be." "Well, he's still trying to rewrite the narrative." She showed me a recent social media post from James, a long, self-pitying explanation of how he had been caught between two relationships and was seeking clarity when the unfortunate public exposure occurred. I scanned the carefully crafted post, noting the strategic ambiguity and subtle victim positioning. Classic manipulation. He's casting himself as conflicted rather than calculating. Exactly. And people are buying it. She took back her phone. "Some mutual friends have already started suggesting maybe I overreacted by posting those screenshots." The gaslighting continues, I observed, just on a broader scale now. Which brings me to my question. Eliza looked slightly hesitant. "Would you be willing to make one public statement with me? Just to set the record straight about what actually happened? We don't need to share details, just confirm the timeline and the pattern of deception." I considered her request carefully. My instinct was to maintain distance from the entire public narrative, to focus on healing privately rather than engaging with the spectacle. But I also recognized the continuing manipulation in James's careful repositioning of events. "What exactly are you thinking?" I asked. "Just a simple joint statement. No interviews, no media circus. Just the facts. James was in a relationship with me for 3 years, with Vanessa for nearly 1 year, and both relationships involved active deception and gaslighting when questions arose." The approach seemed reasonable, factual rather than emotional, clarifying rather than accusatory. "I'll think about it," I promised. "Send me a draft of what you're considering, and I'll let you know." As we parted ways outside the cafe, Eliza surprised me with a brief hug. "Thank you for meeting me. It helps, somehow, knowing I wasn't uniquely blind or foolish." Neither of us was, I assured her. We just trusted people who deliberately worked to earn that trust before betraying it. Walking home, I reflected on our conversation and the strange new perspective it had provided. Seeing the parallel patterns in our experiences highlighted the calculated nature of the deception Vanessa and James had perpetrated, not just opportunistic cheating but systematically structured double lives. That evening, Eliza sent the draft statement she'd proposed. It was exactly as described, factual, unemotional, focused solely on establishing the timeline and pattern without unnecessary details or accusations. After careful consideration, I agreed to let her add my name to it. The following day, she posted it to her Instagram with a simple caption, setting the record straight. "No further comments or interviews will be given." She tagged both James and Vanessa, ensuring they would see it, but not seeking wider attention through hashtags or other amplification methods. Within hours, James had removed his revisionist post. Vanessa had sent me a simple text, "Thank you for keeping it factual and brief. I'm truly sorry for my part in all of this." The statement effectively ended the public chapter of the saga. Without new developments or conflicting narratives to discuss, the story gradually faded from social media attention. The Daniel method remained in some circles as shorthand for a particular approach to suspected infidelity, but my actual name and specific situation receded from the conversation. A month after the coffee shop meeting with Eliza, I received a job offer I hadn't been actively seeking, a senior development position with a tech company in Seattle, offering both professional advancement and geographical distance from the memories in Chicago. The timing felt significant. Perhaps a complete fresh start was exactly what I needed: new city, new role, new social circles untainted by knowledge of my public relationship implosion. After careful consideration, I accepted the offer, giving my current employer 4 weeks' notice and beginning the process of disentangling myself from Chicago. I listed my apartment, sorted possessions into keep and donate piles, and began researching neighborhoods in Seattle. The decisions felt clarifying, purposeful, each one a step toward a future defined by my choices rather than Vanessa's betrayal. 2 weeks before my planned move, Mark insisted on throwing a goodbye gathering at his apartment. Despite my reluctance to be the center of attention, I agreed, recognizing the importance of proper farewells with friends who had supported me through the darkest period. The party was smaller than I'd feared, just close friends who had known me before, during, and after Vanessa. People who had checked in regularly, who had offered couches and conversation when I needed them most. To Daniel, Mark toasted, raising his beer, who handled the most public breakup in our friend group's history with more dignity than any of us would have managed. And to Seattle, added Jason, which has no idea what they're getting. As conversations flowed around me, I found myself by the window, contemplating the city skyline that had been my home for nearly a decade. Chicago had witnessed my college graduation, my first professional job, my relationship with Vanessa, and the spectacular implosion that followed. It contained both beautiful memories and painful ones, inextricably intertwined. "You okay?" Mark asked, joining me by the window. "You've got that processing look again." I smiled slightly. "Just thinking about everything that's happened. How different my life looks now compared to a few months ago. Different bad or different good?" "Different necessary," I replied after a moment. I didn't choose for my relationship to implode or for it to become public fodder. But I did choose how to respond to both those realities. Mark nodded thoughtfully. "You know, when this first happened, I thought you were being weirdly detached. But I get it now. You were protecting yourself the only way you could, by refusing to participate in the gaslighting, by creating space for the truth to emerge on its own terms." "Exactly." I was grateful for his understanding, belated though it might be. "Seattle's lucky to have you," he said, clinking his bottle against mine. "But we're going to miss you like hell." As the party wound down and friends began departing with hugs and promises to visit, I found myself experiencing an unexpected sense of completion. The chapter was ending not with bitterness or regret, but with the quiet satisfaction of having navigated an impossible situation with integrity intact. My final week in Chicago passed in a blur of practical logistics, finalizing the apartment sale, shipping belongings to Seattle, completing handover documents at work. Vanessa reached out once more, asking if we could meet before I left town. After consideration, I agreed to a brief coffee, our third and final meeting at Morton's Cafe. She looked better than she had at our last encounter, more rested, more centered, her eyes clearer. "Thank you for seeing me," she began. "I know you don't owe me anything. What did you want to discuss?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "Nothing specific. I just couldn't let you leave without saying a proper goodbye." She fidgeted with her cup. "I've been in therapy for 2 months now. It's helping me understand why I did what I did, the validation seeking, the compartmentalization, the gaslighting when confronted with inconsistencies." I nodded but didn't comment. Her therapy journey was her own now, separate from my life. "I won't ask for forgiveness," she continued. "What I did doesn't warrant it. But I want you to know that I recognize the full extent of the harm I caused, not just the infidelity but the deliberate manipulation of your perception of reality. That was the truly unforgivable part." Her insight surprised me. "I appreciate you acknowledging that. Seattle is lucky to get you," she said, echoing Mark's words from the party. "I hope you find everything you're looking for there." "Thank you," I replied, meaning it. As we said our final goodbyes outside the cafe, Vanessa hesitated before speaking again. "They were right, you know. About the Daniel method. Your approach forced me to confront the truth in a way no amount of angry accusations could have accomplished." I considered this. It wasn't about forcing anyone to confront anything. It was about reclaiming my own reality after months of having it distorted. "I understand that now," she said quietly. "Goodbye, Daniel. Goodbye, Vanessa." I watched her walk away for the second and final time, feeling a sense of genuine closure that had been missing from our previous parting. The anger had faded, leaving behind a clearer understanding of what had happened between us, not just her betrayal but my response to it, not just the pain but the growth that followed. 3 days later, I boarded a plane to Seattle, leaving behind the city where my heart had been broken but my spirit ultimately strengthened. As the aircraft lifted off, I looked down at the receding shoreline of Lake Michigan, the same lake where Vanessa and I had taken that photo that had been my phone's screensaver for so long. I had changed the image weeks ago, replacing it with a simple abstract pattern. But now, cruising at 30,000 feet, I scrolled through my gallery to find a new image worthy of the fresh start ahead, settling on a recent photo of the Seattle skyline sent by my new employer. New city. New job. New beginning. Built not on deception but on the hard-won wisdom that comes from surviving betrayal with dignity intact. My phone buzzed with a text from Mark. "Safe travels, man. Remember us little people when you're a big-shot Seattle tech guru." I smiled, typing back, "The P&W has nothing on Chicago pizza. You'll be seeing me on visits." As the plane cruised westward, I reflected on the strange, painful journey that had led to this moment of transition. Vanessa's lie had indeed destroyed itself, exactly as I'd allowed it to do by stepping back rather than fighting to maintain it. But in its collapse, it had revealed something unexpected: my own resilience, my capacity to trust my perceptions even when others tried to distort them, my ability to maintain dignity even when publicly exposed. These were the lessons I carried forward, not bitterness or distrust, but a deeper confidence in my own truth, regardless of who tried to challenge or manipulate it. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't in confrontation but in strategic withdrawal, creating space for reality to assert itself without distortion. That was the real essence of what others had labeled the Daniel method, and it was the philosophy I would carry into my new life in Seattle. Not as a victim of betrayal, but as someone who had refused to let that betrayal define him. Not as someone paranoid, but as someone who had trusted his perceptions even when others labeled them as such. The lie had destroyed itself, and in its destruction I had found my truth. Seattle welcomed me with 3 straight days of rain, a fitting baptism into my new life in the Pacific Northwest. My corporate apartment overlooked Elliott Bay, the gray waters reflecting the equally gray sky in a monochromatic panorama that somehow felt refreshing after Chicago's familiar skyline. The tech company that had hired me, Helios Digital, occupied 4 floors of a sleek downtown building. My role as senior development lead came with a team of 8 engineers and responsibility for their cloud security platform. It was exactly the professional challenge I needed, complex enough to demand full intellectual engagement, important enough to provide genuine purpose. "How's the adjustment going?" my new manager, Tara, asked during our first weekly check-in. With her undercut hairstyle, sleeve tattoos, and direct communication style, she embodied the more relaxed tech culture of Seattle compared to Chicago's corporate environment. "So far, so good," I replied. "The team seems solid. Codebase is cleaner than I expected for a product this complex." "And outside of work, finding your way around?" I shrugged. "Still exploring. Haven't had much time for sightseeing yet." Tara studied me thoughtfully. "The relocation team mentioned you moved here without much notice. Career opportunity, or running from something?" The directness caught me off guard. In Chicago, such a personal question would have been considered inappropriate in a professional setting, especially from a manager. "Bit of both," I admitted after a moment. "Needed a fresh start personally. The career advancement was a convenient bonus." She nodded, seemingly satisfied with my honesty. "Seattle's good for fresh starts. Far enough from anywhere to feel like a genuine reset." She closed my file on her tablet. "Team happy hour is Thursday at Cascadia. No pressure, but it's a good way to get to know everyone outside the office." True to my word, Thursday found me at Cascadia Bar, a trendy downtown spot favored by the tech crowd. The team had claimed a corner section, drinks already flowing when I arrived. I recognized most faces from our daily stand-ups, though names were still coming to me slowly. "Daniel, you made it." Wei, one of the front-end developers, waved me over. "We were betting on whether the new guy would show." "Who won?" I asked, sliding into an empty seat. "Lauren did. She said you seemed like someone who follows through." I glanced at Lauren, our UX designer, who raised her glass with a small smile. "Just an observation from our project kickoff. You struck me as reliable." It was a small thing, this vote of confidence from a new colleague who barely knew me, but it landed with surprising impact. After months of having my perceptions questioned and my concerns dismissed as paranoia by someone who claimed to love me, this simple professional assessment of my character felt validating. The evening progressed smoothly, conversation flowing from work projects to Seattle recommendations to gentle personal questions. I navigated these carefully, sharing that I'd recently moved from Chicago without volunteering details about why. "Chicago to Seattle is quite a change," noted Javier, our DevOps specialist. "What made you choose the PNW?" "New opportunities," I replied with practiced casualness. "And I was ready for a change of scenery." "Relationship ending?" asked Lauren with surprising perception. When I hesitated, she added, "The way you packed up and moved across the country on short notice has classic heartbreak energy." The table fell momentarily silent, colleagues clearly wondering if she'd overstepped. I surprised myself with a small laugh. "That obvious, huh?" The tension broke as several people chuckled. "Been there," Lauren said with a sympathetic smile. 2 years ago, I moved here from Boston after my fiancé decided he needed space to find himself. That space apparently included my best friend's apartment. Her willingness to share her own experience made it easier to acknowledge mine. "Something similar," I admitted, though with some additional complications I'd rather not get into. "Fair enough," Tara interjected, smoothly redirecting the conversation. "Now, Daniel needs to know about the hidden gems of Seattle, places not in the tourist guides." The team enthusiastically launched into recommendations, secret viewpoints, hole-in-the-wall restaurants, lesser-known hiking trails. I found myself genuinely appreciating their collective effort to welcome me, to fold me into their established dynamic without pressure or expectation. Walking back to my apartment later, I reflected on how different this evening had felt compared to similar social situations in Chicago these past months. Here, no one knew about the Daniel method or my public relationship implosion. No one was carefully avoiding mentions of Vanessa or watching for signs that I might be struggling. I was simply the new team lead from Chicago, free to define myself without the context of betrayal coloring every interaction. The weekend arrived with improved weather, patches of blue sky breaking through the perpetual cloud cover. I decided to take the ferry to Bainbridge Island, following a recommendation from Way about its charming downtown and waterfront trails. Standing on the ferry's deck as it pulled away from the Seattle terminal, I watched the city skyline recede, the Space Needle and surrounding skyscrapers shrinking with distance. It struck me as an apt metaphor for my relocation, gaining perspective through distance, seeing the full picture more clearly from afar. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from Mark. "How's the PNW treating you? Any flannel shirts and man buns yet?" I smiled, typing back, still in my Chicago wardrobe. "But I did order a coffee with 7 specific modifications today, so the transformation has begun. Miss you, man. Not the same without you here. Miss you too. How's everything back there?" There was a noticeable pause before his response, "Mostly good. Should probably mention, Vanessa reached out to me yesterday. Asked how you were doing in Seattle." My stomach tightened reflexively. "What did you tell her?" "Just that you seemed to be settling in well. Nothing specific. Was that okay?" I considered this as the ferry cut through the gray-blue waters. Was it okay? Did I care if Vanessa knew general information about my new life? After a moment's reflection, I realized I genuinely didn't. That's fine. I've got no secrets to keep from her. Just no desire for direct contact either. Got it. On an unrelated note, guess who's suddenly very interested in moving to Seattle? I stared at the screen, a momentary flare of alarm rising. Please tell me you're joking. Mostly. She did mention the Seattle job market for marketing professionals. I shut that down immediately. Thanks. Appreciate you running interference. Always. That's what happens when you survive the Vanessa saga with me, lifetime loyalty. 1 month after my arrival, I moved from the corporate apartment into a rented condo in Fremont, a quirky neighborhood known for its public art and local character. The space was smaller than my Chicago apartment but featured large windows overlooking the Ship Canal and a rooftop deck with mountain views on clear days. It felt like mine in a way no space had since before the implosion with Vanessa. "This neighborhood suits you," Lauren remarked when she and some other team members helped me move in. "Creative but not pretentious. Close to everything but still has its own identity." "I think that's a compliment?" I laughed as we arranged furniture in the living room. "Definitely a compliment," she confirmed with a smile. "Some people take years to find their Seattle neighborhood match. You nailed it on the first try." After the move-in was complete and pizza had been devoured, the team departed with promises to organize a proper housewarming once I was settled. Lauren lingered behind, helping collect pizza boxes and empty bottles. "Can I ask you something potentially awkward?" she said as we finished cleaning. "That's quite a setup," I replied cautiously. "But sure. This Chicago relationship that prompted the cross-country move, was it the one that became some kind of internet phenomenon? The Daniel method thing?" I froze, hand halfway to the recycling bin. "How did you?" "I wasn't completely sure until just now," she admitted. "But a few things lined up. Your name is Daniel, you're from Chicago, you're a software engineer, and you moved suddenly after a relationship ended dramatically. My roommate is obsessed with relationship TikTok and showed me some videos about this guy who discovered his girlfriend's double life and just stepped back to let everything implode publicly." I set down the empty bottle I was holding, trying to process this unexpected collision between my Seattle present and Chicago past. "I really thought I'd left that behind." "Sorry," Lauren winced. "I shouldn't have brought it up. Forget I mentioned it." "No, I sighed, leaning against the counter. "It's actually somewhat refreshing to have it acknowledged directly instead of wondering if people know but aren't saying anything. If it helps, I'm pretty sure no one else on the team has made the connection. I only did because my roommate is frighteningly well-versed in relationship drama content." I nodded, oddly relieved by her straightforwardness. "To answer your question, yes, that was me. Though the whole method framing was completely invented by social media. I was just trying to maintain my sanity in an impossible situation." Lauren studied me for a moment. "Well, for what it's worth, I think you handled it with remarkable dignity. My post-breakup behavior involved drunk texting, social media stalking, and an ill-advised haircut." Her lightness around a topic that had been treated with such careful gravity in Chicago was unexpectedly refreshing. "The haircut was actually phase 2 of my plan," I joked. Seattle just happened to intervene first. Sunday morning brought an unexpected text from Vanessa. I know we agreed on no direct contact, but I felt you should hear this from me rather than through mutual friends. I've accepted a position with Archer Marketing in Portland. I'll be relocating next month. I stared at the message, unsure how to feel about this development. Portland was just 3 hours from Seattle, close enough to register as uncomfortable, but not so close as to suggest deliberate pursuit. After careful consideration, I replied, "Thank you for the heads up. Wishing you well with the new position." Her response came quickly, "Thank you. I want to be clear that this move isn't about proximity to you. The job opportunity is genuinely exceptional, and I need a fresh start just like you did. I promise to respect your space and boundaries completely." The explicit acknowledgement of boundaries was reassuring, suggesting genuine recognition of the harm she had caused rather than continued manipulation. I appreciate that clarity. Good luck with the transition. 3 months into my Seattle life, I received an email from Claire Donovan, the Chicago Tribune reporter who had sought my input for an article on relationship deception. She was working on a follow-up piece focused on recovery and rebuilding after such experiences and wondered if I might share some insights about my journey forward. Where once the thought of discussing the Vanessa situation publicly had filled me with dread, I now found myself considering the possibility, not for vindication or exposure, but because my perspective might genuinely help others navigating similar painful terrain. After a thoughtful phone conversation with Claire, I contributed anonymized insights about moving forward after relationship betrayal, from practical steps like establishing new routines to deeper work around trusting my perceptions again after months of gaslighting. Trust yourself, I offered in response to her question about advice for those in the early stages of discovering deception. If something feels wrong consistently, pay attention to that feeling. Legitimate relationships can accommodate questions without making you feel crazy for asking them. And remember that stepping back, creating space for truth to emerge on its own, isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the most powerful thing you can do. 6 months into my Seattle life, I hosted a dinner party at my Fremont condo, a milestone that would have seemed impossible in the raw aftermath of the Vanessa implosion. Lauren, Javier, and several other colleagues gathered around my dining table, conversation flowing easily from work projects to local politics to travel plans. Later, as guests departed and Lauren helped me clear the last dishes, she paused, leaning against the kitchen counter. "That article you contributed to, the one about rebuilding after relationship deception?" I read it. I looked up, surprised. "How did you know about that?" "Remember my roommate who's obsessed with relationship content? She follows that writer on social media." Lauren smiled slightly. Your voice came through, even anonymized. The perspective was distinctly you, measured, insightful, focused on growth rather than grievance. "I hope that's a compliment," I said, uncertain where she was heading with this observation. "It is." She set down the towel she'd been using to dry dishes. "It's also why I've been patient these past few months." "Patient?" "Waiting for you to be ready," she clarified, "for something beyond friendship." The directness of her statement caught me off guard, though in retrospect, the gradual progression of our connection had indeed been building toward this moment. "I've been wondering about that," I admitted. "Whether I was misreading signals or projecting or overthinking," she suggested with a gentle smile. "Very on brand for you." "Apparently so." "Look," she continued, "I'm not pushing for immediate definition or commitment. I just wanted to express clearly that my interest extends beyond friendship, whenever or if ever you feel ready to explore that possibility." Her approach, direct but patient, clear but undemanding, represented exactly the kind of healthy communication I'd been missing with Vanessa. No manipulation, no hidden agendas, just honest expression of interest with full respect for my autonomy. 8 months into my Seattle life, I received one final email from Vanessa. "Daniel, I hope this message finds you well. I've settled in Portland and begun building a new life here, much as I imagine you've done in Seattle. I'm writing not to disrupt your peace or request renewed connection, but to share something that feels important. I've completed intensive therapy addressing the patterns that led to my deception. This isn't an attempt to rewrite history, but rather to affirm that I've taken full responsibility for my actions. The article you contributed to was brought to my attention by a mutual friend. Your insights about moving forward after betrayal were powerful and, I imagine, helpful to many. It demonstrated growth and perspective that I genuinely admire. I won't contact you again unless you initiate communication. I simply wanted to close this chapter with acknowledgement of the harm I caused and appreciation for the dignity with which you handled an impossible situation. Wishing you all the happiness you deserve, Vanessa. After careful consideration, I composed a brief reply. Vanessa, thank you for your message. I appreciate the acknowledgement and am glad to hear you've found helpful therapeutic support. Your commitment to growth speaks well of your character, despite our painful history. I too have built a fulfilling new life and gained valuable perspective. While our paths crossed in ultimately destructive ways, I hope we both carry forward lessons that lead to healthier futures. Wishing you well in Portland and beyond, Daniel. With that final exchange, the last threads connecting my Seattle present to my Chicago past were gently severed, not through anger or resentment, but through mutual recognition that our chapter had definitively concluded. That evening, standing on my rooftop deck watching the sunset paint the mountains in gold and pink, I felt a sense of genuine completion. The journey from discovery to devastation to rebuilding had come full circle, leaving me in a place I could never have anticipated when Mark first called with his revelation about Vanessa. My phone buzzed with a text from Lauren. Still on for dinner tomorrow? Found a new place in Ballard I think you'll love. I smiled, typing back, absolutely. Looking forward to it. The path forward wasn't perfectly clear, relationships never are. But I had learned to trust my perceptions, to value straightforward communication, to recognize when paranoia was actually intuition trying to break through denial. Most importantly, I had learned that sometimes the most powerful response to deception isn't confrontation but strategic withdrawal, creating space for truth to emerge undistorted by manipulation. My girlfriend had said I was paranoid. I had let her lie destroy itself. And in that destruction, I had found my way to something far more authentic than what had been lost.